right? And if more people are coming, they'll just join us whenever it is. No, this is not a normal Zoom meeting. This is a seminar. It's a special kind of meeting that it has other facilities. So we're not seeing each other. If the participants want to ask, they have to use the chat or the questions and answers section. And then once Kristen is given the opportunity to answer the questions, we'll read them aloud. Okay, no, it's not a usual Zoom meeting where everybody can see each other and talk. It's special for education and seminars. Mm-hmm. Okay, Kelly, we're reading you. So we can start. For the people who don't know any of the organizations present here, we are Foundation ALPE based in Spain. We are a patient advocacy organization for skeletal dysplasias. We have this new acronym, this new word we use because we find it very useful. It's ASDD, which is achondroplasia and other skeletal dysplasias with dwarfism. So what it means is that when talking to ICOSEP or Magic Foundation, who are great foundations and organizations internationally working with all kinds of growth disorder conditions. Between those, we are quite well defined as only skeletal. We have physical complications, and as well we have a very important psychosocial burden associated to our conditions, which are object of a social stigma. So that's particularity in comparison with all other growth disorders. We first met ICOSEP in Vienna in 2018. We met Mary and Jamie there, and it was a great experience. We learned so much. And ALPE, Foundation ALPE, we are always open to collaboration, synergies, working together in different things. And it's like we've been looking for some common project that can bring us together. And this experience with Kristen is one of the first collaborations we have. We met Kristen a couple of years ago. She came here with our president, James Healy, and his daughter that they met her in the Palais Institute, where Kristen is in charge of patient advocacy. And when we found ourselves with the COVID restrictions and social distancing and confinement, we realized that families, I mean, we talk about families, meaning persons with ASDD and or their families. They needed to still be active and looked after and supported and educated. So we started this series of experts talks. Some of them are more technical, more medical, addressed to a multilingual public in different countries. Others are more psychological, and others, for example, Kristen, are more addressed to a US or English-speaking public, even from different countries. And anyway, we are very glad to say hello. We are here for anything you'd like to ask us as well. And we have a website and we are available for any kind of comment now or afterwards. We are ALPE Foundation, and now we have the pleasure to give the floor for a couple of minutes to Ashley from ICOSEP and Magic Foundation, and then we'll have Kristen for the rest of the time with her surely interesting and very inspiring talk. Ashley, it's your turn.
Thank you. So my name is Ashley Gilmer. I am the executive director of ICOSEP. ICOSEP is the this is a mouthful, the International Coalition of Organizations Supporting Endocrine Patients. We are considered the international division of the Magic Foundation. The Magic Foundation was created in the 1980s by mothers who were struggling to receive medication and any type of real attention for growth disorders in their children. They fought many doctors, many nurses in order to get the type of medical care that their children actually needed at the time. Achondroplasia, as far as ICOSEP goes, we're still very new to that division. And Fanny knows, she is one of our earliest organizations that we have been able to interact with and work collaboratively together on. So I'm really excited to be here and to help out. You know, what ICOSEP does in the meantime, we try to speak to different countries, different ambassadors all over the world about different growth disorders, and are enabling parents to have the united voice, so to speak, to say, hey, there is an issue with my child. There may be an issue with my child's growth. We just need someone to pay attention to it and acknowledge the fact that we are concerned. So hearing any information on achondroplasia, for me, and definitely since I'm still fairly new to ICOSEP, I'm really excited for it because I don't know a lot about achondroplasia, and this is great for me. So it allows me to learn the different routes parents may need to go in order to have those physicians understand that their concerns are very valid and very, very important. So thank you for having me.
Thanks to you, Ashley, for being here. By the way, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Fanny. I'm the project manager of Foundation ALPE. And she's Sonia. She's the administrative of the foundation. The director of the foundation, the very well-known Carmen Alonso. She can't be here because well, it was an sudden issue that avoided her being present. She sends her greetings and well, what else? I was thinking that I forgot something. Yeah, no, it's okay. Now we have the pleasure then to listen to our dear Kristen.
Yay.
It's Kristen.
I'm going to try and share my screen. Bear with me. As I said before, I'm not good at this stuff. Hopefully this works. Share computer sound.
Okay, you see the screen sharing?
Oh no, security and privacy. Now it's asking for security and privacy. I don't know what that means. Is it working? No, you can't see my screen.
Okay, can you just say okay?
Let's see. It's for some reason it's asking me to grant access. Oh, here we go. Oh no, I don't think it's even gonna work, of course. So I guess I'm just gonna talk.
No,
'Cause
hold on. It must work. It always works before. Sonia, ¿cuál puede ser el problema? Que no consigue compartir pantalla.
Are you the host, Kristen? Does it designate
no,
you
I'm
as
not
the
the host.
I think you have to be the host in order to share your screen.
Yeah, but she is a panelist. ¿Deberemos dar permiso para que compartan los panelistas, Sonia?
En principio deberían poder compartir, pero déjame ver.
Let us check.
See, this is not my forte at all. And if I just talk, it's going to be a little bit more boring, but
No. It must be an explanation. We have to fix this because it's always worked before. It must be something silly. Maybe some kind of permission that we need to give you.
Ella tiene los permisos, ahora.
And now you're here. You're sharing.
okay, can you see now? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know what I just did. I was just playing with it, and
Okay. It works.
sometimes things work out. All right, let me see if I can get it to go full screen.
Yeah.
Holy cannoli. All right, now let's just pray that everything else works, and that it loads. Yay! Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Kristen Andrade. I am 35 years old, and I was born with achondroplasia. I'm an author. I recently published a memoir 2 years ago, a speaker and an advocate for those living with dwarfism and just in general, those living in the face of adversity. So I'm here to tell you today a little bit about growing up with dwarfism, living with it, what I've gone through, and why, like the importance of sharing stories and why scars are stories meant to be shared. What I can tell you is that nothing good ever comes from hiding the truth. And it's definitely one of the biggest lessons that I've learned throughout my lifetime. Let's see. Yay, it's working. Okay, so Ashley, I wasn't sure who I was going to be presenting to. So if you don't know a lot about achondroplasia, it is the most common form of dwarfism. It's a short-limbed dwarfism characterized by short arms and legs. We have normal-sized torsos. And 80% of individuals born with dwarfism are born to average size parents, which that was me in my case. And I actually have a younger brother who is 6'4". I know. And so my mom found out that she was going to be pregnant, or that she was pregnant with me, and that I had dwarfism when I was 8, I think when she was 8 months pregnant. And my parents didn't know anything about dwarfism up until that point. And at that point, my mom immediately just started doing as much research as possible. And for as long as I could remember, she had a green folder that was in my closet, just full of newspaper articles, magazine clippings. I mean, back then the World Wide Web didn't, exist. So it was a lot of external research. And when I was born, we had a family that came in to visit my mom. It was a man by the name of Jack, and his daughter, Becky, actually had achondroplasia. And it was the first time that my parents had ever spoken to anyone who was associated with the dwarfism diagnosis. And I think for them, it was a very calming thing to have connections with another family who was raising a daughter who was, I think Becky was 3 at the time when I was born. So that was really important for them. After I was born, I had delayed milestones, which is very typical of any individual born with dwarfism. So I sat up, crawled, stood, walked much later than the average baby. And one thing that's really important that I've learned after working with an orthopedist for so long is that this day and age, we have so much technology that enables us to sit babies up, early on, like the bumbo seats. And for anyone who has achondroplasia or a form of dwarfism, it's really important to avoid those for overall spine health reasons. And Thankfully, those didn't exist back then, so my parents didn't have that problem, but you see a lot more of an onset of kyphosis or other curvatures of the spine with these special seats and such. After I was born, my parents struggled to find a specialist. There are not many people, even to this day, who are very skilled with skeletal dysplasias. And there's a lot that goes into the diagnosis. It's not just orthopedic. I mean, there's a lot with ear, nose, and throat, neurology, genetics. And finally, we found a surgeon in Baltimore, Maryland, Dr. Kopitz, who had a skeletal dysplasia center, and he was incredible. A lot of individuals my age right now living with achondroplasia or another form of dwarfism did see him. And unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. But we would go yearly for him for checkups, and he would check my head circumference and do x-rays of my spine and my arms and my legs, all very important. Overall care in general for any child or adult with dwarfism is super important because there's a lot of different areas in which complications can arise. So growing up, you know, my parents took me home and they just raised me to be a fierce, independent little girl that they knew that I could be. I had lots of accommodations at home. We had stools all over the house, you know, because I couldn't reach light switches. I couldn't reach cabinets or countertops. So we had stools everywhere. I had my own little set of dishes in a lower cabinet with silverware and cups so that I was able to, you know, get a meal for myself and be as independent as possible. At school, when I would sit in a normal sized desk, my legs would stick out, so they would fall asleep really easily. So they got me a special little table and chair with some boxes to put my feet on to make sure that I was comfortable at school. Thankfully, I never had an issue with bathroom doors or anything like that in school. They were lower enough where I could reach them, but I know that public facilities can be an issue with some school-age children. Other issues that arose, thankfully, my mom was a seamstress, so she was able to hem all of my clothes. And then as I grew older, you know, I didn't have any boundaries with sports. I was a cheerleader. I played softball. I swam. I was in Girl Scouts. And essentially, I could do anything that I wanted and put my mind to, except for contact football. I tried to convince my parents that I could play football, and that was a big no-no. But I did begin to see as I got older that I was having a hard time keeping up and I was experiencing joint pain. So that was something that we obviously kept an eye on. My lower legs were starting to bow and I dealt with a lot of ear infections. Also common to anyone living with dwarfism, specifically achondroplasia. The ear canal is differently shaped, which causes a fluid buildup, and you get a lot of ear infections. I had many sets of tubes as a kid, and now as an adult, I deal with hearing loss in one of my ears from ruptured eardrum. So that's always fun. Growing up, when I was really little, I never saw myself as different. You know, I was pretty oblivious to how the rest of the world saw me until I was in first grade, and I'll never forget it. I was sitting at my desk and these two boys were in front of me, completely turned around in their seats, and they used the word midget. And I knew in that moment, I didn't know what the word meant, but I knew it wasn't positive. And I knew that this was going to be something instantly that I was going to be dealing with. And I had two choices. I could sit there and take it or do something about it. And of course, as kids, you know that you're not supposed to be a tattletale, but knowing that it affected me the way that it did, I wanted to say something to the teacher. And so I did. And I went up and she pulled us all out into the hallway and she said, "This is not tolerated. There will be no name calling." And that it felt really good for me as a kid, knowing that I made the right decision and that I was standing up for myself. So I was already starting to be my own advocate. And I know that that can be an issue for a lot of kids. They don't say anything. And it's important that you do. Which brings me to bullying. and with the rise of social media, now cyberbullying, it's awful. Everything matters when you're growing up. You know, what you wear, who you're friends with, where you go to school, what sports you're playing. And bullying is real. And I think that anyone growing up with dwarfism can tell you that they have experienced bullying in one form or another. There's three kinds: physical, which would be physically hitting someone, damaging property, or forcing someone to do something that they are uncomfortable with. Emotional, calling names, laughing at them. And then relationship bullying would be like exclusion, or insulting people, spreading rumors about them. And again, I think anyone who has grown up in the face of adversity in general can, you know, tell you that they've dealt with this. I was recently having a conversation with a super dear friend of mine, and she's got 2 little girls, and she was like, Kristen, what do I tell my girls when they're, you know, when they're pointing at someone in public? And I always say, just say hello, like turn the point into a wave and say hi, make the connection. I don't speak for everyone, but I know that I can speak for a portion of the population, for those of us living with dwarfism, where I would much rather have someone make an inquiry or ask questions or say hello than simply point and stare. And it all starts with kids. You can tell a child that a disability isn't a disease, and they're going to listen to you. And then it comes to, what can we personally do to help with this? And it's sharing. You know, be open with your story and educate. I've been told so many times that educating isn't my job. I disagree, because if I don't do it, then who else is going to do it? And I know that I'm not the only one that chooses to educate and be open with their story, and that proves strength in numbers. And even now, I will say, with the rise in social media, the good thing is that there are a ton of parents out there that are advocating for their kids and raising so much awareness around dwarfism and other, you know, cerebral palsy, other conditions that bring about bullying. So when I was in 3rd grade, we read a book called Thinking Big. That's the cover of the book. And it was about a little girl named Jamie who also had achondroplasia. And my teachers were just like, wow, this is amazing. After reading the story, it was incredible to me to draw the parallels between Jamie and myself. You know, she needed a stool to reach the counter. She couldn't read light switches. She used a stool to reach the faucet to brush her teeth. And my teachers were like, Kristen, please, like, let's do something. We want you to talk to the class, highlight the advantages and challenges, and hopefully eliminate a little bit of judgment just among the classmates. Because, you know, as kids get older, you create your own judgments surrounding, you know, different situations. So my best friend at the time, Liz, and I, we made a movie, and I'm about to show it to you. I hope that it works. This was 3rd grade. I also had a really thick Boston accent. But after doing this, after we recorded the movie and then did it live for our class, and having the kids participate and ask me questions not only allowed me to feel seen, but also heard. And one of the things I tell parents who have kids with dwarfism is to do something similar. You know, write a letter to the teacher so that the teacher can read it aloud. Have the child, if they're comfortable, do a presentation to their class and introduce themselves, and just, again, erase those boundaries and let the class see that despite the size, you know, the child is just like everyone else. They're going to school, they love to play sports, they love art, you know, draw the parallels. So let's see if this works. This is never before seen, so we'll see.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Zappa. And I'm Kristen Andrade. We've been friends since we were 4 years old. Last year, we won first place in the science fair. We will be talking about why I am so small. She's so small because the bones in her legs go very, very slow, but our bones go very, very fast. So when she's an adult, she'll probably be about as tall as I am, but we'll be about as tall as a real adult. We will show you why, compared to my arm to look at that, it is probably very short. And compared to my leg to hers, it's probably very short. You see that the thigh is right here and her knee is right here. So you know that my leg is very short.
From her waist and up, she's the same size. For instance, when we sit down, we're the same size. When we kneel, we're the same size. Probably wondering why we're not going to kneel like this. We're not going to kneel like this and compare because her legs involved in that, and her legs are very, very small right there, and my legs are very tall right there.
And my family and I have decided that I will be having an operation. The operation will stretch my arms and legs. There will be braces around my arms and legs. But we will probably do one arm and one leg at a time. There will be braces around them, and there will be little tiny red knobs. You will turn the knobs, and needles will go into the bone. They will stretch, and I will make my bones longer.
But when it stretches, it won't have so much pain, but it'll have a little bit.
Some things that Kristen, will you be able to go to school? Yes, I will be able to go to school, but I will be in a very special class.
When you get your braces off, will you be coming to school?
Yes, I will be coming to school, but I will just have questions. Some things that I can do that Liz can't, I caterpillars.
I can do that part, but I can't do that part.
Oh boy.
Liz can't go down all the way, but I can. And there's one more thing that I can probably do that no one else except for other people like me can do. I can sit down without bending my knees and get up without bending my knees.
See, if all you guys tried to go down, you would make a big bang. And then when you go down, when you try to get back up, you might try to go like that. But Kristen doesn't use her hands when she gets back up. And she doesn't bend her knees and get up, or she doesn't use her hands and bend her knees.
Some things that I have trouble doing is reaching things. Me and Liz can both reach that, but Kristen can't reach this one. And some things also that I have trouble with is getting up into the car. If I have to go up into my friend's, sometimes Liz has this big red Jeep, so I can't get up into it. I have trouble. I have to climb up the side of the door and then put my foot on. And when I sit in the car, I have to get back out of the seat and shut the door.
She'll have to stand up when she shuts the door and lean far out.
And some things that I probably can't do in school are sitting in the chair. When I get up into the chair, you probably notice that I get up into it like this. Liz just sits down. And some of the things that bother me are when my legs go out straight. That makes my legs very tired and they fall asleep and then they start hurting. But my teachers got me another new chair that make me more comfortable and it helped my legs feel better.
And she has some boxes under it so that even if she didn't have the boxes, then and she would have to put her feet to the side. And by the boxes, she would get tired and she wouldn't have to cut her feet to the side. And there's one more thing that we have to say. It doesn't matter if you're tall or small, you can still be friends.
And here's some questions that other people.
All right, we'll skip the questions. So that was literally my first time ever speaking up for myself.
And I'm Kristen.
No. There we go. And that was the first time I'd ever talked about limb lengthening. the fact that I thought that I was going to get one arm and one leg lengthened at the same time was a little bit of misinformation on my part. But it was something that my mom had always gathered information on, starting from from when I was really little. Again, we had folders on information on dwarfism, and then she started gathering information on limb lengthening. And I had seen multiple medical specials on limb lengthening and just was always really curious about it. And I also knew that I was going to require surgery at one point or another. My lower legs were bowing and I was having a lot of joint pain. And one of the biggest things with limb lengthening is that it prevents early onset arthritis. When I talk to parents of kids with dwarfism, I am super adamant about including the child in the choice as to whether or not they undergo lengthening. Because this is not an easy procedure. They're not easy procedures. It is very challenging. And I think that the more that the child knows and understands, the easier the process is going to be. Not only that, but there is controversy that surrounds the procedures as a whole, which I did not know until I was in the middle of going through all of it. And at that point, when I made the decision to undergo lengthening, everything was done externally. And now today, you have almost everything is done internally. So they have the lengthening with the precise nail and stride. And it's rare that kids are having external fixators, which is amazing. So the first procedure that I had done was on my lower legs. I was 12 years old, and it was right after 6th grade. So the summer after 6th grade, I made the decision to undergo. I was 9 months in the Alizaroff frames that you can see on my lower legs. And in 9 months, I gained 6 inches of new bone growth, as well as having my lower legs straightened. And as a kid, and I think many kids can agree, or at least adults now growing up and going through childhood, you know, when a child falls down and they get hurt and they cry, we oftentimes shush them. You know, it's shh, you're okay. As a kid, going through these surgeries and just growing up in the face of adversity in general, I thought that I was supposed to suppress and hide the sad, scary, and angry feelings. So I wasn't big on voicing them, which isn't good for anyone. Thankfully, I continued to be an advocate for myself. And going into 7th grade, you're an adolescent, you're going into a new school, let alone, going through surgery. My health class, we had to pick projects to do. And I went up to my health teacher and I was like, limb lengthening and dwarfism doesn't really fall into the 7th grade health curriculum, but can I do the project and just share with my class what I'm going through? And she said, absolutely. So that continued advocacy allowed me to still have a voice and feel heard and seen. The second phase of lengthening, I was 14 and it was on my upper arms, also done with an external fixator. And this one was just a bar that goes along the humerus. I was 6 months and got 4 inches of new length, as well as I ended up with full extension of my arm. And this one allowed me complete freedom. So I wasn't in a wheelchair. It didn't hinder my mobility at all. I was able to walk. I attended school. I went into my freshman year of high school full time. And it was by far the easiest of the procedures. And then the last one, I was 15 years old and I had, again, a similar bar fixator on my femur, my thigh. And this one was hard because all of my mobility was restricted. Unlike the fixators on the lower legs, which provide support all the way around, and you can weight bear, so I was able to get up and walk with the first fixators I had. The fixators on my femurs was not the case. I was in a wheelchair the whole time. I did get 5 inches of new bone growth, which made me a total of 13 inches taller. And I also, at that point, had started journaling and writing as a way to kind of channel my feelings, and continued advocacy with our local newspaper. There was an article published about Dr. Paley, and there were some very negative comments and controversial things that were stated. And I said, I don't agree. And I wrote a letter to the editor, and that was my first piece of published work that was in the newspaper. And then I was also on CBS Sunday Morning News here in the United States, as well as The Maury Show. Not my finest moment, but we all have to start somewhere. And the biggest thing for me through these surgeries, you know, I had been going to Dr. Kopitz for so long, and he was the skeletal dysplasia specialist, and he didn't agree with the surgeries. He didn't perform them. And I had so much respect for this man. I went and I actually asked permission prior to having the surgery and just said, you know, this is the decision that I'm choosing to make, and I would love your support. And I'm so glad I did that. As I mentioned before, he actually passed away a few years after I finished my lengthening. But again, so the advocacy continued with, you know, the national television and just choosing to speak out about the experiences and kind of erase a little bit of that controversy and the unknown. And then after lengthening, I went off to college. I led a completely independent life. I graduated college, was working full time. And then in my 20s, I lost feeling and sensation from the waist down. And I did not know what was going on. I was living in Charleston, South Carolina at the time. The doctors there mentioned spinal stenosis and simply said, go to physical therapy. And over the course of the year, I had basically lost my ability to walk. I could barely walk. I was in extreme amounts of pain. And through the community, since going through limb lengthening, through the community, you develop these relationships and friendships with people. And someone had checked in with me and just asked how I was doing. And when I explained what was going on, she had said that Dr. Feldman, who was a spine specialist, had started practicing at the Paley Institute in Florida. So I immediately made an appointment. And by the time I got down there, he took one look at me and said, you are in big trouble. Spinal stenosis is something that I feel kids can get it. It's most common in adults. And it goes misdiagnosed and mistreated or untreated far too often. I underwent my first surgery in May of 2016. And after that had 11 additional surgeries to keep me on my feet because I had waited too long and my spinal cord was so severely compressed that I actually suffered from some paralysis. I had to give up everything and start over. I moved to Florida. And I was stuffing envelopes for a rehabilitation center to make a little bit of money. It is so important to find a knowledgeable surgeon and a doctor who knows skeletal dysplasia and is familiar with all of these different complications that can arise. I cannot stress that enough. The doctors where I was in South Carolina were not skilled and they knew what spinal stenosis was. They didn't know how in danger I was living with spinal stenosis. Living life in pain should never be an option. Since undergoing all of the surgeries I've had, I've come to realize how many specifically adults are currently living with spinal stenosis and in so much pain, and it doesn't have to be that way. Spinal fusions are seen as a bad treatment. It's not bad. It's necessary. Is it easy? No. Easy doesn't last. Nothing in life is easy. You have to go with the treatment that is going to prevent further damage. And essentially when it comes down to it, that's what a spinal fusion does. You can go in and get a spinal decompression or a laminectomy, but that's not going to prevent the spinal canal from continuously collapsing back in on itself versus being held up with hardware, which is what I am now. I'm fused on 10 levels of my spine. But now I'm stable. And it's been the hardest thing that I've ever done, but totally worth it. So while going through everything with my spine, again, I turned to writing, and I had done a lot of writing through college and after college as well. But I found myself in a pretty dark place, you know, not knowing what I was going to do with myself for so long, recovering from surgery after surgery after surgery. So I put my time to good use and published a memoir. And it's, aside from all the surgeries and making a move to Florida, it's definitely the scariest thing I've ever done. And it was essentially putting my story out there for everyone to read. So it's all about growing up with dwarfism. I tell all about the limb lengthening surgeries, and then essentially it ends when I'm 16 and I get my driver's license. And it was really scary. It was really scary to do, but I'm really glad that I did it. And I told myself, you know, if one person can read my words and relate in some way or take something away from it, that's a win for me. And I've had more than one person say that, which is incredible. Contemplating writing a second book about everything that's gone on with my spine. We'll see where that goes. But words are really powerful, and expressing yourself is very important. And I think writing as an outlet is incredibly powerful as well. Okay, so my story. Bottom line, for the longest time, society led me to believe that I was not enough. You know, growing up in the face of adversity with dwarfism, and kind of learning throughout childhood that the sad, scary, angry feelings are not something that you share, it becomes a lot. And I'm thankful that I journaled and used writing as an outlet, but it's also important to talk about it. Talking about it makes you feel a little less alone, and it also offers perspective. I have many friends now, just from living in Florida and working alongside some people at the clinic here, who don't have dwarfism, but they're going through their own medical challenges. And I have a super dear friend of mine, we're similar in age, and you know, the parallels that we can draw from our lives and just the struggles that we've had, it's so important and it's very comforting. And I think our most important relationships that we make are made from being open and honest with who we are. And so I share in hopes that my story and struggles and successes can be some kind of user manual for someone else, you know, whether it be a parent of a child with dwarfism, or you know, a child or an adolescent who's dealing with similar struggles, but help them navigate that path. And it's led to speaking and writing opportunities, which I'm extremely grateful for. And so at the end of the day, easy definitely doesn't last. Your attitude does. And I try and go through every day, you know, I'm grateful when my 2 feet hit the ground. And I also know that, you know, it's not all butterflies and rainbows. We have our bad days too. And it's okay to talk about those. For the rest of my life, I will be my only and own advocate. You know, I can't rely on other people to fight for me. I have to do that work. And so parents for, you know, of kids living with dwarfism or another different ability, you are your child's advocate. And I would highly encourage you to encourage them to start advocating for themselves at a young age. You know, it's a self-esteem booster also. And you never know who you're going to impact by sharing your words or your stories. And again, strength in numbers. And one thing I always tell myself is that it doesn't matter how long your legs are, you can only take one step at a time. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Kristen. It has been, as we expected, so interesting and inspiring. That necessity we all have of role models when we are children and we're growing up. You know, I think the positive example you are for so many people is very important. The main thing, the most interesting thing myself, you know, I get from your talk is the advocating for yourself at the beginning when you were little, you know, that thing, I was my own advocate. I think that's something that we all have to learn. All children with dwarfism have to learn to be advocates for themselves, and as well the necessity of expressing yourself, of expressing one's feelings and issues, and writing is wonderful for everything. Her book is great. It's available for all of you on the internet, I guess, right?
Yes, on Amazon. I think Amazon.
Yeah.
And it does ship internationally.
Mm-hmm.
Working on getting it translated. I would love, I've had many inquiries on translating specifically to Spanish, so we'll see, maybe sometime in the future can make that happen.
Great. And well, we ALPE, we are based in Spain. We don't have, we are open to visitors from anywhere. We offer free assessments by specialists, you know, ENT, orthodontists, physiotherapists, traumatologists. We have a team of specialists that assess the condition of people who come. We have people coming from US, other countries from all over the world. Kristen was here as well. So you're all invited. You're all invited to get in touch and ask any question you may have if you want to visit us. We organize congresses and meetings, and we do many more things. I mean, we are on the internet as well, so you can find out there. We'll be glad to communicate with any of you. Same with ICOSEP, and the Magic Foundation based in US. Ashley, if you want to say something or goodbye or.
Yes, we absolutely can help anyone out. If you are based in the US and you need some sort of assistance getting to the correct doctor, getting referrals, even assistance with prescription coverage, the Magic Foundation is there to help. ICOSEP, again, we're the international division. So we can help anyone from all over the world, excluding the US and Canada. That is primarily the Magic Foundation, but we can always get you in touch with anyone in pretty much any country who is going to be able to get you where you need to go. The emotional support that you get from similar communities, you know, similar parents experiencing the same things. You know, as Kristen said, being your own advocate, learning how to be your own advocate, those you can learn very much so from each of the groups that are part of ICOSEP. So we encourage everyone to speak out and reach out to us as well.
Mm-hmm. If you want to ask or say something, you have the chat and the questions and answers section. If you want to say something, Kelly is congratulating Kristen for her talk. So informational and well articulated. And we do as well. It's been so interesting. I love that video of you at school.
That's the first I've ever seen. I have never showed that to anyone. So you guys,
lovely. You're lovely, and the video is great.
It was
so
great.
Nice, everything. Any questions in the chat?
Has any questions?
Yeah,
literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kristen offers her email. Little speaking heart at Gilmer. So if you want to ask her anything or say anything. And well, on behalf of ALPE Foundation, thank you all for being in this talk. We are so thankful and we appreciate so much ICOSEP and Magic Foundation, and of course, Kristen. We're sure we're going to do many more things together, and
definitely
we'll have many more chances to collaborate and have good times. So if you want to say anything, I keep looking at the chat in case someone asks. but it's all congratulations. So I think we can say goodbye for the moment.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it was fun. Thank you, Ashley. And again, if you ever have, you know, any families or anything, you can definitely point them in my direction. I'd love to be an advocate for you guys as well. My emails, you can littlelegsbigheart@gmail.com.
Happy to support you guys any way I can. Thank you very much,
So,
Kristen.
thank you very much to all of you.
Yes, thank you all. Thanks, Fanny. Bye, Sonia.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Ashley.
Bye.
Bye, Kristen.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.